Hello everyone. We are going to solve the next question from the sheet, that is deletion in a doubly linked list. You are given a doubly linked list of n positive integers. Your task is to delete a node at position pos in the linked list. So in a particular given position, we have to delete that node. Okay, and we are given the head of the linked list. Assume that the indexing from linked list starts from 0. Here we can see the example that n is given 5, that is number of elements in the linked list, and here's the list, and we have to delete element or node at position 1. Indexing starts from 0 to 0 and 1. So the second one we have to delete. Output should be 1, 2, 3, 4. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so five element are these. Here this minus 1 is for their internal calculation or what. So let's code it, and we don't have to return anything, so return, we can also return head, I think so. Position in linked list, to reach a particular position we need to have a calculation variable that calculates the position we are in. So I'm going to set a count variable, initialize it to 0, then while this we are going to create a temporary node temp node, and we will set it equivalent to head because we don't want to alter the head. Now while this temp dot next is not condition checking, we will do later. Now for now, while it's true, if temp dot next is equal to none, that is we have reached the tail, we should break. And if we have not reached the tail, we are going to count plus equal to 1. Now what we need to do, we need to delete the element at position. Okay, so indexing starts from 0 position. If c and t is equal to the given position, that means we have reached the node where we need to delete that node. So if that's the case, there can be three cases. That the first case is we are deleting the head, second case is we are deleting tail, and the third case is we are deleting the middle element. So if we are deleting head, how do we know if we are deleting head? If c and t equal to 0, that means we are at first position. We need to delete head. Return null. I think that will do the work. Else, elif, else we can say, else we need to delete that element. So temp dot previous should be the next of temp dot previous should point to temp dot next, and the previous of temp dot next should point to temp dot previous. Now the adjacent elements are linked to each other. We need to unlink the temp node. So temp dot and top next is equal to none, and temp dot previous is equal to none. That way the temp node will be left alone in the memory, and garbage collector will automatically delete that temp node. Now for the last case, if the element is tail, that is if temp dot next equal to none. If that's the case, we need to what we need to do. Does constant say that position is should be less than n? It says so. Count equal to 0. This will be taken if position equal to 0. Count will be 0. Is position equal to 0. Return none. Else if temp this middle thing we have resolved. Now how do we resolve tail? Because in the tail case, in the case of tail, when we delete the tail element, the previous node of the tail, the next of previous node of the tail should point to none. So that's why we need to detect if it's the tail element we need to delete. So this will run up till we have reached the tail. And if count is equal to position, count will be plus from here. I think count should be incremented after this. So 1, 2, 3. If temp talks next. So before incrementing count, if we are checking we have reached tail, and if we have reached tail, the position says that it should be under 0, or it should be under the defined index. So that means if this is not run and this is reached, ultimately this is the element we wanna delete because of the constraint. So we can put here that the next of previous element of temp should point to none, and temp dot previous should be none. I think this will work. Let's see. Okay, one error. Line 26, line 26 here. Delete node. None type object has no other attribute next. Okay, so there is no next. None type object. Temp dot previous dot next equal to temp dot next equal to none. Temp dot previous equal to none. When did I set temp is equal to none? Temp is equal to 2. Temp dot next. Line 26. Delete node. Temp dot previous dot next. None type has no attribute next. Temp dot previous is set none. How? Pause equal to if cnt equal to pause and pause equal to 0, return none. Else temp dot previous dot next. Okay, I think we have reached the tail. That's why it's not working. This code should be here. Elif line 30 here. Problem is still here. I think I have to again ask help from an AI. Which one should I choose? Quinn. What's the error is about? Don't give me solution. Just explain the issue. The error occurs because time.previous is none, which means you are trying to access next attribute on a none object. That I understand, but how? Because the temp.previous dot next could be none if the node is head, but we have already um, checked condition for the head. This happens when you trying to delete first node in the linked list. Here, when position equal to 0, the code sets temp previous to none. Temp, or it was already none if none was at the head. But then later in the code, you are still trying to access temp previous dot none. Looking at your logic, when okay, so could it be that list is already empty? No, no, and has at least two elements. What is T? So linked list is at least of size 1, 2. Your while loop doesn't have a proper termination condition. If the position doesn't exist in the list, temp could become none. Or you might be accessing a node where previous is none and then trying to use. The core issue is the in control flow. The while true loop combined with the position checking logic can lead to a situation where doesn't exist. How? One more thing that I forgot is that temp should be incremented temp dot next. L if I think this condition, this part of code is already modifying the tail, then this part is executing. So that's what happening, I think. So what we need to do is while true, should we check this first? As in line 29, what is doing unindented does not match any outer indentation level. Okay, one space. Okay, line 22, that is here, temp dot next equal to none. Oh, next. How temp dot previous could be none? It would have some element. Okay, and os is not equal to 0. Again asking the AI, just give me X, Lee, don't give solution. Without checking if it's none. When you are at head node position 0, temp dot previous will be none. Okay, if your position corresponds to head node, or if you are iterating through the list and reach a node where previous is none, then we'll throw an attribute error. Additionally, your logic has a flaw in while loop. You are checking before if the current position matches, which means you are handling the tail node differently. But this can interfere with normal deletion process. The main problem is first node head, there is no previous node, so temp down previous will be none. Okay, that I understand. If the temp is head, that is temp dot next. If that's the first element we need to delete. Okay, I understand. There is something missing. If position is equal to 0, so we need to head is equal to temp dot next, and temp dot next should be none. Return head if that's the head element. this condition should be after this, I guess. One. So one, two, okay, I need to think from the scratch because whole thing is now like complicated in my brain. So thinking from scratch, I have keep a count variable to track position, then a temporary variable to keep a temp node. Now, while it's true, we are checking if we have reached current position is equal to the required position, and the required position is could be zero. So required position could be zero, but how? So the required position could be zero. So counting should be starting with 0 to if count if we are at the current required position, if position is 0, that means we have to delete the head node. So head is equal to temp dot next, and temp dot next should be none, returning head. I think that's good. Else that means all the tail case, tail case plus middle element case. I think L if I should write a condition, temp dot next is not equal to none. If that's the case, that means it's the middle element. And for the middle element, the the next of previous element should be pointing to the current's next, and the previous of next element should be pointing to current previous, and current next and previous should point to none, so that this temp variable is now alone in the memory. If temp dot next is equal to none, that is we have reached the tail node. That means temp dot previous dot next should be pointing to none, and temp dot previous temp dot previous dot next should be pointing to none, and temp What's the issue? Line 33. Here. What's the debug with AI? Inbuilt AI. Maybe that will help me. A runtime error often occurs if you try to access modify a node that doesn't exist, such as deleting the head or tail without updating pointers correctly. Deleting the head or tail without updating pointers correctly. Double check if you handle deletion at position 0 and at the last position tail properly. Ensure you update both previous and null next pointers of the neighboring nodes. For example, when deleting head, if position equal to 0, yeah, head should be pointing to head.next. Head should be pointing to temp.next or head.next. Okay, and head.previous should be none. If head, that is, if head is not none, head.previous should be none. Huh. Temp.next equal to temp dot should be none. Head.next, head or temp doesn't matter. Now we have to delete the temp. Temp dot next equal to none. Same error at line 34 here. Are you updating both pointers when removing a node? So for head is equal to head dot next. Head dot previous should be now none. Okay. Temp dot next. Okay. We are saying that head should be head dot next, and if head is the single element, the next now it's set to none. So none dot previous equal to none. None type has no object. So here that can occur the error. So if head, that means if head is not none, head dot previous should be none, and temp dot next should be none too. Return head. Similarly here, temp dot previous if temp dot previous, applying the same logic, don't know if it will work. It worked. I just have to check if temp dot previous exists. That is, it is not none, and it worked for all test cases. So with the little help of AI, I solved this question. But I have to revise it once more, that how this logic is working, because temp dot previous, if temp dot next equal to none, that means we have reached the tail. And if we have reached the tail, this can only happen is if linked list has only one element. And if it has one element, the position given will be 0. And if it will be 0, so this count and this position will match and the logic will go here. And if it is 0, head dot next, this will be like, I think I'm gonna comment this and run it again. Again, I have error. First, let's submit it and check if all test cases have been passed. And yeah, all test cases passed. I have to dry run it. So yeah, that's all for today. See you next time.